The day the new elevator at Sterling Corp went on the fritz, I was trapped in a sealed metal box with her. With the Ice Queen CEO, Victoria Sterling. Out of nowhere, she asked me, "What are your thoughts on the new check-in policy?" On the surface, I was all professional respect. "It's a brilliant system, Ms. Sterling. Very forward-thinking." Inside, my brain was screaming, "Forward-thinking, my ass. What kind of soulless corporation makes you log in to a productivity app at 3 in the morning?" A tiny smile played on her lips. "Good. I'm canceling it tomorrow." After that, she started running into me all the time, calling on me in meetings, sharing a table in the cafeteria, even hopping into my bumper car at the company picnic. Every time, I'd give her the perfect, respectful, corporate drone answer while my mind was a raging dumpster fire of unfiltered commentary. It all came to a head during the corporate espionage crisis, when I had a random thought that the crucial evidence was probably hidden in a printer cartridge at the rival company. The next day, Victoria led a corporate raid and, sure enough, found a micro drive nestled in the toner drum. After the celebratory dinner, I came down with a killer case of the flu and called in sick. Late that night, my doorbell rang. Victoria Sterling was standing there, wearing a surgical mask. "I heard you were sick. I was in the neighborhood, brought you some medicine." I was so delirious with fever I could barely stand. "Ms. Sterling, how'd you know I lived?" She leaned in close, her breath ghosting over my feverish ear. "Can you hear me now?" The L train was a sardine on wheels, groaning its way through the city's steel arteries. I was one of the sardines, probably not the freshest one, with my back pressed against a cold metal pole and my chest pinned by some guy's enormous backpack. Every lurch and break of the train was a full-body, claustrophobic squeeze. The air was a thick cocktail of sweat, greasy breakfast sandwiches, and cheap perfume. I managed to turn my head just enough to avoid the heavy breathing of the man next to me, my eyes landing on a massive billboard flashing past the window. There she was, Victoria Sterling, dressed in a razor-sharp black pantsuit, staring off into the distance like she was conquering the world with her gaze alone. Behind her, the clean lines of a skyscraper. The tagline hovered next her head. "The secret to success? Arriving an hour before everyone else." I stared at the words, felt my body being compressed into a two-dimensional object, and the thought that had been simmering all morning finally boiled over. An hour early? "Ms. Sterling, do you have any idea what this train is like during rush hour? It's a circle of hell Dante forgot to write about. Arriving an hour early. That's easy for you to say from the back of your chauffeured Maybach while you sip your artisanal single-origin coffee. The secret to success? More like the secret to being completely out of touch with reality. Who in their right mind clocks into the Sterling Pulse app at 3 a.m. every damn day? They don't even work Amazon warehouse bots this hard." The silent rant scrolled through my head, a desperate, primal scream against the detached tyranny of the C-suite. At that exact moment, a sleek black Maybach glided silently into the private underground entrance of the Sterling Corp Tower. In the back seat, Victoria Sterling sat poised, a bone china coffee cup held delicately in her fingers, a faint trace of lipstick on the rim. She was watching the dark tunnel lights blur past the window, about to take a sip of her perfectly tempered coffee. They don't even work Amazon warehouse bots this hard. The voice, unmistakably young, male, and seething with exhausted resentment, exploded in her mind without any warning. Sputter, cough, cough, cough. Victoria choked violently. Hot coffee sloshed over the rim of the cup, a few drops splashing onto the sleeve of her expensive, custom-tailored suit, leaving dark, ugly stains. In the front, her driver, old Mr. Henderson, and her executive assistant, Ava, both jumped, their heads snapping around with looks of alarm. "Ms. Sterling, are you all right?" Ava's voice was tight with concern. Victoria forced down the burning sensation in her throat, grabbing a tissue to dab at her sleeve while struggling to compose the shocked, contorted expression on her face. She waved a dismissive hand, her voice a little hoarse. "I'm fine." The coffee was a bit hot. Fine? How could she be fine? What was that voice? It was as clear as if someone had been screaming directly into her ear. And the content? Was it a complaint about the company's insane new check-in policy? 3 a.m. on the Sterling Pulse app? Victoria's heart was hammering against her ribs, an unnerving, alien sensation gripping her. She closed her eyes, trying to locate the source of the voice in her mind, but it was like trying to see through a thick fog. Only the echo of that resentful shout remained. Taking a deep breath, she forced herself to calm down. Was it a hallucination? The result of too much pressure lately? Or something far stranger? With a soft chime, the private elevator doors opened on the garage level. Victoria tucked away every trace of emotion, her face once again the cool, impenetrable mask of command. She stepped out, her heels clicking on the polished concrete. Ava hurried after her, pressing the button for the top-floor executive suite. The elevator ascended smoothly. And then, clang! A deafening bang and a violent shudder rocked the car. The lights flickered out, replaced instantly by the ghostly white glow of the emergency lighting, casting the small space in an eerie pallor. The car jerked to a halt, trapped between floors. Ah! Ava let out a small, sharp cry. Victoria stumbled, but her reflexes were sharp. She caught the handrail, steadying herself instantly. Her brow furrowed. What's going on? Her voice was like ice in the enclosed space. I don't know, Ms. Sterling. Ava fumbled for her phone, her voice frantic. I'll call building services right away. The emergency call button only produced a series of useless beeps. The signal was dead. Victoria's fingers tightened on the rail. Stuck in an elevator. One of the worst possible scenarios. She hated the loss of control, the invisible pressure of a confined space. The air already felt thin. She forced herself to stay calm, her gaze sweeping the small car. A sliver of light appeared in the crack between the doors, accompanied by muffled shouts and footsteps from outside. Someone was trying to pry the doors open. Put your back into it. A little more, a gruff voice yelled. It's no good, Mike. This thing is jammed tight. A younger voice answered, laced with panic. A crowbar strained, widening the gap just enough to fit a hand through. By that faint light, Victoria's eyes fell on the corner of the elevator. There was someone else in here with them. A young man in a generic light blue button-down, sleeve casually rolled to his forearms, his tie askew. The uniform of a low-level office drone. His face was pale, clearly spooked by the sudden failure, and he was staring intently at the crack in the door, nervously wringing his hands. He looked vaguely familiar. She thought she might have seen him in the back of a project meeting once. His name. Was it Leo Carter? From facilities? She rarely paid attention to the rank and file. Ava was still uselessly tapping at her phone's dead screen. Outside, the scraping and groaning continued, but the gap wasn't getting any wider. Seconds ticked by, the oppressive silence thickening in the small space. Just as Victoria's patience was wearing thin, just as she was about to demand a status report in a tone that would freeze hell over, a voice bloomed in her head. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. This brand new piece of crap elevator. They hyped it up like it was a spaceship, and it breaks down in the first week. Someone in facilities must have gotten a hell of a kickback on this contract. And now I'm stuck in a tin can with the final boss. This is just my lucky day. How long are we going to be trapped in here? My expense report is due today. It's the absolute deadline. That voice. It was the same one from the parking garage. The exact same resentful male voice. Victoria's pupils contracted almost imperceptibly. She snapped her head up, her sharp gaze locking onto Leo Carter in the corner. He flinched as if he'd been zapped by static electricity, instinctively straightening up. He forced a painfully awkward, almost sycophantic smile onto his face. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Oh God, she's looking at me. That stare could curdle milk. Does she think I look too miserable? Is my bad vibe messing with her corporate feng shui? Smile. Smile like your job depends on it. That's it. Hold it. My expenses. My expense report. And on his face, the forced smile stretched into a bizarre, unnatural grimace. Victoria's gaze flickered between his twisted smile and the words expense report flashing like a neon sign in her head. A profound sense of the absurd washed over her. She could hear this employee's thoughts. This Leo Carter. All the complaints, the fears, the petty little anxieties he would never dare to speak aloud were flooding her mind like a broken dam. The feeling was utterly surreal. The prying from outside grew louder, and the gap widened another fraction of an inch. The head of engineering, A large man named Mike Wallace yelled through the crack, his voice dripping with apology. "Ms. Sterling, just hang on. We're almost there. Just a little glitch in the new system. We'll have you out in a jiffy." A little glitch? Leo's thoughts immediately followed. A little glitch? This feels more like a systemic collapse. I bet the facilities guys were too busy counting their kickback money to do a proper inspection. This thing is probably held together with duct tape. Almost there. Yeah, right? Famous last words. His inner monologue was precise and scathing, a hilarious contrast to the strained, respectful look he was trying to maintain on his face. Victoria forced herself to look away from his weird expression, turning her attention to the crack in the door. "Just get it done," she said, her voice cold and clear. The moment the words left her lips, she heard a long, drawn-out sigh. In her head, filled with the despair of a man resigned to his fate. And then, an idea sparked in her mind, an audacious, almost mischievous thought. If she could hear his real thoughts, what would happen if she asked him a question she knew would get a completely phony answer? She slowly turned back, her gaze falling on Leo once more. Her expression was placid, but it carried an invisible weight. "Leo Carter?" she said, his name rolling off her tongue with perfect accuracy. He jumped like he'd been shot, the smile freezing on his face before snapping back into an even wider, more strained version. He stood ramrod straight, his voice trembling slightly with nerves. "Yes, Ms. Sterling. How can I help you?" Victoria watched his deer in the headlights act, the strange sense of control she felt becoming even sharper. She leaned forward just a fraction, her eyes analytical, and posed a question. "The company's new flexible check-in policy. What do you think of it?" The question hung in the air. The tiny space fell silent, save for the faint hiss of the ventilation and the distant scraping from outside. Leo's mind went blank. The check-in policy, the one that required everyone to log into the Sterling Pulse app at 3 in the morning? The one they called flexible but was really designed to stretch every employee to their breaking point. How was he supposed to answer that? "What do I think?" "Are you serious, Ms. Sterling? That policy is insane. It's inhumane. What kind of sadistic genius came up with that? Do they think we don't need sleep? Or that we all secretly have the power to teleport? Flexible? It's flexing us right into an early grave. A 3 a.m. check-in? That's not a thing human beings do. The donkeys on Old MacDonald's farm would go on strike. What kind of person gets up at 3 in the morning just to tap an icon on their phone? If that policy is reasonable, I will eat this broken elevator." The volcano of his inner rage erupted, every word a testament to the suffering of the oppressed masses. The sheer force of his resentment was a psychic storm in Victoria's mind. In reality, however, after a brief moment where his face went pale from the sheer intensity of his thoughts, Leo Carter took a deep breath. His facial muscles, as if trained for this very moment, snapped into an expression of profound sincerity and admiration. His voice was strong and clear. "It's a brilliant system, Ms. Sterling. I think the flexible check-in policy is incredibly scientific and completely reasonable." He even nodded emphatically to sell it. "It fully demonstrates the company's commitment to a healthy work-life balance for its employees and has dramatically improved our autonomy and time management skills. It's a textbook example of modern management theory. All of us on the ground floor are 100% behind it. Morale has never been higher." He delivered the lines with the conviction of a true believer, his eyes shining with the light of a loyal corporate soldier. If Victoria weren't currently hearing the mental echo of him screaming, "I will eat this broken elevator," she might have actually been fooled by his flawless performance. The sheer, hilarious disconnect between the man and his mind. Victoria felt the corners of her mouth twitch. She fought down the urge to smile, but a glint of amusement and understanding flashed in her eyes, too quick to be caught. Looking at Leo's face, etched with sincerity, while listening to the frantic chant of "Eat the elevator, eat the elevator, eat the elevator," in her head, she suddenly found this low-level drone to be exceptionally interesting. It was as if the universe had just handed her a living, breathing focus group of one. "Oh, completely reasonable." Victoria's voice was still perfectly even, betraying nothing. 100% behind it. "Yes, absolutely reasonable. Absolutely behind it." Leo's reply was firm, while his mind screamed, behind it. I'm behind, burying it 6 feet under. Victoria gave a slight nod, as if satisfied with his answer. Just as Leo was about to breathe a sigh of relief, she spoke, her tone casual, as if the thought had just occurred to her. In that case, Ava, make a note. Inform the heads of admin and HR. The flexible check-in policy, she paused deliberately, clearly hearing Leo's breath catch in his throat, then continued in a slow, measured voice. Is cancelled. Effective tomorrow. We'll revert to the old system. WH what? Ava thought she'd misheard, staring at Victoria with her phone still in hand, her face a mask of confusion. Cancelled? The policy Ms. Sterling herself had championed, the one that had just been approved by the board. Cancelled because of one sycophantic remark from a junior employee in an elevator? In the corner, Leo Carter had turned to stone. The sincere smile was frozen on his face, his eyes were wide, and his mouth was slightly agape. He looked like a mannequin that had just been powered down. The feed in her head went haywire. Cancel. What the hell? What'd I just hear? Did she say? Cancel. Canceled the 3 a.m. check-in. For real? Am I hallucinating? Is the lack of oxygen in here making me hear things? Just because I said it was reasonable? That doesn't make sense. Why would she? Unless she thought it was a stupid policy too? No way. She's the one who pushed for it. Oh my God. It's a miracle. I feel dizzy. My expense report. I have to turn my expense report today. The roller coaster of his thoughts went from utter shock and disbelief to pure, unadulterated joy. Victoria took in Leo's spectacular, dumbfounded expression and Ava's bewilderment. She said nothing more, simply turning her gaze back to the crack in the door, as if she had just issued the most mundane of directives. Only she knew that her heart, so accustomed to being in complete control, was now beating to a strange new rhythm, a rhythm sparked by an unexpected new ability and the intensely theatrical junior employee standing beside her. A rhythm called amusement. The engineering team finally managed to brute force the elevator doors open. Blinding light flooded in, chasing away the ghostly emergency lighting. Ms. Sterling, I am so sorry. Are you all right? Mike Wallace, the head of engineering, was standing there, sweat pouring down his bright red face, bowing so low he was nearly bent in half. Victoria ignored him. She didn't even look at Ava. Her gaze shot past the crowd of technicians and locked onto the blue-shirt figure trying to slip out the back of the car. Leo was hunching his shoulders, attempting to blend in with the maintenance crew and make a break for it. Leo Carter. Her voice was quiet, but the 2 words acted like a leash, stopping him dead in his tracks. His back went rigid. He turned around with agonizing slowness, that well-practiced, slightly over-the-top smile plastered on his face again. Ms. Sterling, is there anything else? His mind, however, was wailing. You've got to be kidding me. Again, my expense report is going to miss the last bus out of town. Victoria looked at his desperate attempt at composure, her mind automatically playing his internal monologue about the expense report. She didn't mention it. Instead, she said in a flat, almost offhand tone, 3 p.m., top floor conference room. Emergency meeting about this elevator incident. Her eyes flicked to Mike Wallace's suddenly ashen face before settling back on Leo. You'll be there too. We need someone from facilities to provide a detailed account. Mike Wallace looked like he was about to have a heart attack. A detailed account? An account of how many kickbacks he'd taken to approve a shoddy elevator contract. He looked like he might faint on the spot. Leo was even more thunderstruck. Me, the top floor, the main conference room, in a meeting with Victoria Sterling? Provide an account? What the hell am I supposed to provide? I'm a gopher in facilities. I'm not even allowed to see the purchasing contracts. Mike's shady deals. Oh, this is bad. This is really bad. When the gods fight, the mortals get crushed. I'm about to be thrown on the barbecue. My expense report. It's officially dead in the water. A hurricane was raging in his mind, but on his face, he could only manage an even more brilliant and honored smile, his voice trembling almost imperceptibly. Yes, Ms. Sterling. I'll be there. On time. Victoria said nothing more. She gave a curt nod, turned, and walked away, her heels striking the marble floor with a crisp, rhythmic cadence as she headed for the executive elevator. Ava scurried to catch up, shooting a venomous glare at the pale-faced Mike Wallace. Leo was left standing there, staring at Victoria Sterling's formidable back, his mind a wasteland of despair. 3 o'clock. The top-floor conference room. The long table was lined with the company's top brass. VPs and department heads sat in rigid silence, each staring intently at the empty space in front of them. Mike Wallace sat nearest the door, beads of sweat rolling down his shiny forehead. The wad of tissues under the table was being shredded in his clammy hands. The seat next to him was empty. It was for the head of facilities, who had reportedly come down with a sudden, acute case of gastroenteritis and was currently at the hospital receiving an emergency 4-drip. And at the far end of the table, tucked into a corner, sat Leo Carter. I was trying to shrink into myself, to become one with the chair. A brand new notebook lay open in front of me, the pen in my hand shaking so hard it was leaving little tremor marks on the paper. I felt like a rabbit that had wandered into a den of lions. The door opened and Victoria Sterling walked in. She'd changed into a charcoal gray suit, her presence even more powerful and intimidating than it had been in the elevator. Without looking at anyone, she went straight to the head of the table and sat. "Begin," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it seemed to suck the remaining oxygen out of the room. Mike Wallace flinched as if he'd been struck. He shot to his feet and began his incident report. It was a masterclass in corporate doublespeak, blaming the system's break-in period, the supplier's inadequate calibration, and chalking it all up to an unforeseen accident. As he spoke, he kept darting pleading looks at me, hoping I'd chime in and corroborate some meaningless detail. I kept my head down, staring at the blank page of my notebook, my mind a raging torrent. Lies. All of it. Keep digging that hole, Mike. Break-in period? Inadequate calibration? Who are you trying to fool? Everyone knows the supplier, Synergy Tech, is run by your brother-in-law. Their bid was ridiculously high, and you personally guaranteed the quality. Now that there's a problem, it's an accident, and you want me to provide an account? An account of what? That your brother-in-law's shell company doesn't have a single qualified engineer? That the core components of these elevators are refurbished parts? If I say any of that out loud, I'll be cleaning out my desk by tomorrow. You slimy old fox, trying to use me as a scapegoat? Not a chance. My internal takedown was vicious and spot on. On the outside, I just hunched my shoulders further, my pen drawing meaningless circles on the page, the perfect picture of a terrified, know-nothing subordinate. Victoria listened to Mike's excuses without a flicker of expression, her fingertips tapping a slow, steady rhythm on the polished tabletop. When Mike got to the part about the supplier's credentials are top-notch, with an excellent industry reputation, Victoria's tapping stopped. She looked up, but she wasn't looking at Mike. Her gaze traveled the length of the table and landed on me, cowering in my corner. "Leo," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. "Facilities deals with engineering more than anyone. Regarding this supplier, Synergy Tech Solutions, what is your impression of them? Their technical expertise and service response time, specifically." Boom. A lightning bolt just struck my brain. This is it. The question of death. I snapped my head up and met her eyes. They were deep and dark and seemed to see right through me. My heart hammered against my ribs. My impression. Technical expertise. Service response. Ms. Sterling, you're killing me here. What can I possibly say? That the company is a joke? That the engineers they send over can't even read a wiring diagram? That their service hotline is either always busy or they promise to call you right back and then vanish off the face of the earth? That Mike is in their pocket and covers up every problem before it can be officially reported? If I say that, I won't live to see another sunrise. The terror was a tidal wave in my mind. Every eye in the room was on me. A mix of curiosity, pity, and schadenfreude. Mike was glaring at me, his eyes screaming silent threats and pleas. Sweat beaded on my forehead. Under Victoria's calm, crushing gaze, I swallowed hard and, with the grim determination of a soldier marching to his doom, found my voice. "Reporting to you, Ms. Sterling," I said, my voice loud, almost unnaturally cheerful. From my experience, Synergy Tech Solutions, as one of our strategic partners, has an incredibly robust technical team. Their engineers are highly experienced, absolute professionals, and their service response is second to none. They're always available, first on the scene to solve any problem. This elevator incident, I'm confident. Confident that it was just a fluke, an isolated event. It doesn't reflect Synergy's overall quality. I nodded vigorously as I spoke, as if trying to convince myself. My eyes locked on Victoria's with a look of unwavering loyalty. Robust my ass. Experience my foot. Always available. Only in my dreams. Strategic partner? More like strategic disaster. Mike, you owe me big time for this. I've never told such a bald-faced lie in my entire life. My soul is weeping. My professional ethics are dying a slow, painful death. Ms. Sterling, please don't believe me. I'm being held hostage here. My internal screaming was a tragic counterpoint to the righteous, partner-defending image I was projecting. Victoria listened to my passionate and internally agonizing speech without a single change in her expression. Just as the guilt was about to swallow me whole, she spoke, not to me, but to Ava. Ava, take this down. First, terminate all contracts with Synergy Tech Solutions. Initiate legal proceedings to hold them fully liable for all damages and the threat to executive safety caused by their defective products. The world went dark for Mike Wallace. He nearly slid out of his chair. Second, Victoria's gaze shifted to Mike's deathly pale face. Head of Engineering, Mike Wallace, is suspended of all duties, effective immediately. He will cooperate with a full audit by our internal compliance department regarding the elevator procurement project. Mike slumped into his chair, completely defeated. Third, Victoria's gaze swept over the silent, terrified executives, finally landing on me, still reeling from my own performance. Leo Carter Facilities Department, she said, watching my eyes go wide as she heard the singular, panicked "what the hell?" in my head. For demonstrating the initiative to observe potential issues with a supplier and having the courage to voice concerns that protect the company's interests in a high-level meeting, your actions are commendable. You'll receive this month's top performance review. Me? Everyone else in the room. My brain just short-circuited. What did I just hear? Top performance review. For having the courage to voice concerns? But I was lying through my teeth to cover for Mike and Synergy Tech. Does Ms. Sterling have some kind of reverse psychology superpower? Is she being sarcastic? No, she looked dead serious. What in the world is going on? I sat there, completely stunned, my mental CPU fried. Victoria had already declared the meeting adjourned and was walking out, leaving behind a room of stunned silence and a dozen pairs of eyes fixed on me with expressions of utter, baffled confusion. I have no idea how I floated back to my little corner of a cubicle in the cluttered facilities office. The squeak of my worn-out office chair as I sat down was what finally jolted me back to reality. The eyes of my coworkers were on me like spotlights. Shock, curiosity, envy, and a hint of jealousy. Leo, my man, you killed it. Kevin from the next cubicle was the first to break the silence, leaning over and clapping me on the shoulder. He kept his voice low, but it was buzzing with excitement. A meeting on the top floor, handpicked by the CEO, and a top performance review. You just hit the big time, dude. Come on, tell us, is she as terrifying in person? What did she say to you? Yeah. We heard Big Mike got suspended on the spot. And Synergy is done for? Did you expose some huge conspiracy in there? Another coworker chimed in, her eyes gleaming. My face felt like it was on fire. Expose a conspiracy? I did the exact opposite. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. What was I supposed to say? I think the CEO might have a hearing problem and misinterpreted everything I said. Even I wouldn't believe that. I managed a pained smile that was more of a grimace. It was nothing. Ms. Sterling just asked a few questions, and I just reported the facts as I saw them. I looked down, feeling like a complete fraud, and started picking at a loose corner of my desk mat. Reported the facts my ass. That was a coerced, false testimony. What is going on in her head? How did she get voicing concerns for my stream of bull? Unless she already knew about Mike and Synergy's shady deal and just used me as a pretext to make her move? But that doesn't make sense either. Why not just launch an investigation? Why go through all this trouble and use me as a prop? Am I just a human shield? My mind was a chaotic mess of conspiracy theories and wild speculation. Come on, Leo, don't be so modest. Kevin just assumed I was being humble. When you get that corner office, Don't forget about us little guys. Hey, that performance review comes with a fat bonus, right? Drinks are on you tonight. Drinks. I instinctively checked my empty wallet and groaned internally. A bonus? A performance review? This feels like blood money. It feels like I scammed the company. And the way Ms. Sterling operates is just too weird. I've got a bad feeling about this, like the other shoe is about to drop. You have to. To celebrate the promotion, my coworkers cheered. I had no choice but to agree, my heart sinking with every cheer. My eyes scanned my desk and landed on the crumpled expense report tucked under my keyboard. Today was the absolute final deadline. Oh, my expense report. I yelped, all thoughts of Victoria Sterling, Mike Wallace, and performance reviews vanishing in a puff of smoke. I snatched the report and the attached receipts and bolted for the finance department like my hair was on fire. Wait for me. Don't close for the day. My coworkers watched my frantic sprint down the hall, looked at each other, and burst out laughing. Guess not even a promotion can come between Leo and his expense reports. I made it to the finance department with seconds to spare, jamming the report that represented my hard-earned money into the submission box just as they were locking up. Only then did the knot in my chest loosen a little. Even though the mystery of Victoria Sterling was a fog I couldn't see through. In the days that followed, I felt like I'd been sucked into a bizarre vortex. Victoria Sterling, the Ice Queen CEO, seemed to have installed a tracking device on me because she kept bumping into me in the most unbelievable ways. The cafeteria was a loud, chaotic mess of people and smells. I finally found an empty seat in a far corner, and I just shoveled down 2 bites of food when a cool shadow fell over my table. Victoria Sterling sat down in the chair opposite me. I nearly choked on my food, which I saw with horror was still visible in my open mouth. Her tray held nothing but a small salad and a glass of water, a stark contrast to the noisy, greasy environment. Dozens of shocked and curious eyes swiveled in our direction. MMS. Sterling. I managed, frantically trying to stand up. Sit, she said, her voice flat. She picked up her fork and began to methodically rearrange the lettuce on her plate. How's the food? Every hair on my body stood on end. I swallowed the lump of food in my throat and sat bolt upright. It's great. Absolutely great. The cafeteria has high standards, a wide variety, very nutritious. It really shows the company's deep commitment to employee welfare. I was scraping the bottom of the barrel for every corporate buzzword I could think of. My mind, however, had other opinions. Great my ass. Where's the chicken in this chicken and potato stew? Did the potatoes eat it? These green beans taste like they were boiled in dishwater. And these breadsticks are hard enough to be used as a weapon. Nutritious? More like ridiculously overpriced. The admin department must be skimming a fortune off the top of this catering contract. Victoria listened to my mental diatribe against the stew, the green beans, and the breadsticks without batting an eye, gracefully lifting a single leaf of lettuce to her mouth. Then, at the exact moment my thoughts turned to the admin department's kickbacks, she set down her fork, dabbed her lips with a napkin, and beckoned to the head of administration, who was standing nearby, looking just as stunned as everyone else. The man scurried over. Ms. Sterling, how can I help you? There's a general consensus among the employees that some of the cafeteria's offerings are subpar and not cost-effective. I want your department to organize an anonymous, company-wide satisfaction survey. I expect to see a detailed improvement plan and a proposal for rebidding the catering contract on my desk by next week. Also, effective this month, increase the lunch subsidy by 20%. The admin head's face looked like he'd just swallowed a bug. Yes, Ms. Sterling. Right away. Me? I stared at Victoria, who was now calmly sipping her water, then at the pained expression on the admin head's face. My brain shut down. Does she have superhuman hearing? Is she a psychic? I only said nice things. How did she so precisely extract the phrases subpar, not cost-effective, and even sniff out the kickback scheme? This was terrifying. The company picnic was at Six Flags. During the free activity period, I made a beeline for the most childish, least crowded ride I could find, the bumper cars. I was hoping to avoid any and all potential chance encounters. I just buckled my seatbelt in a little blue car, ready to lurk in a corner by myself, when the passenger door opened and someone slid in beside me. I turned my head, my neck creaking in protest, and found myself staring at the emotionless profile of Victoria Sterling. She wasn't in a suit. She wore a simple gray tracksuit, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked less intimidating, but the powerful aura was still there. "MS. Sterling." My voice cracked. She acknowledged, her gaze fixed straight ahead. "How do you operate this thing?" "Operate what? Why are you haunting me? Are you even allowed to be on this ride? This is so wrong." My mind was screaming, but my face was smiling. It's easy. Gas pedal, steering wheel. Just hold on tight, Ms. Sterling. I prayed to every god I could think of. Please don't let me crash into her. Don't let her get a single scratch. I can't afford the deductible on my soul. The bell rang, and the ride started. I gingerly pressed the accelerator, and the little blue car began to crawl forward. My plan was to hug the wall, staying as far away as possible from the more aggressive drivers. Victoria seemed displeased with my cautious pace. She frowned slightly. Just then, a red bumper car, horn blaring, came flying at us from behind, aiming straight for our rear bumper. "Look out!" I yelled, instinctively cranking the wheel. What the hell? Which idiot is driving that thing? If you damage the CEO, they'll sell your organs on the black market to pay for it. How did HR even approve this? This is a high-risk activity for her. She shouldn't be here. My panicked thoughts were still racing when my body took over. I yanked the steering wheel hard. The little blue car executed a clumsy but effective sharp turn, narrowly avoiding the red car's kamikaze attack. The two cars scraped past each other with a screech of plastic on plastic. The turn was so sharp that I was thrown against the door, a sharp pain shooting through my shoulder. But Victoria, beside me, seemed to have anticipated it. She had a firm grip on the handhold, her body barely swaying with the movement. Not a single hair was out of place. When the car stabilized, she even had the composure to comment, "Good reflexes." My heart was still pounding. I rubbed my aching shoulder, my mind weeping. "Good reflexes? I'm putting my life on the line here, Ms. Sterling. Can you please, for the love of God, stay away from dangerous activities in the future?" My heart can't take it. Victoria didn't say another word. She glanced at the terrified young employee in the red car, then back at me, wincing as I rubbed my shoulder. The next day, a company-wide email went out. Subject: regarding the enhanced safety protocols and activity selection for employee team-building events. It emphasized risk assessment and safety guidelines for senior executive participation, and the tone was exceptionally strict. The employee from the red bumper car was reportedly counseled by his department head for a full hour. I read the email, looked at the fading bruise on my shoulder, and felt a complicated mix of emotions. I was becoming more and more certain that none of Victoria's chance encounters were by chance. She was like a master hunter, strategically laying bait, her questions, and then harvesting the raw, unfiltered intelligence from me, her unwilling prey. I was her walking, talking approval rating meter. The feeling of being manipulated by an invisible hand was deeply unsettling. Terrifying, even. But what could I do? Quit. My mortgage and car payments would crush me. Fight back? With what? All I could do was continue to play the part of the respectful, boot-licking subordinate on the outside and the raging lunatic on the inside, praying that this bizarre form of special attention would end soon. Then, a storm hit Sterling Corp without any warning. A rival company, Apex Dynamics, suddenly launched a new line of products. Their core features and design were a 90% match for Sterling Corp's Project Zenith, a top-secret initiative we'd been pouring millions into for over a year. The news sent shockwaves through the industry. Sterling's stock price plummeted. The entire company was in an uproar. It's a mole. It has to be a mole. In an emergency board meeting, the head of R&D, a man named Zhao, slammed his fist on the table, his face pale with rage. Our core data has been leaked. This is blatant industrial espionage. The atmosphere in the conference room was suffocating. All signs pointed to an inside job. Corporate security locked the building down, launching a full-scale investigation into everyone with access to the project data. A witch hunt had begun. The tension was thick even on my floor. During lunch, the break room was packed, and everyone was talking about the crisis. Did you hear? Security took in that guy, Zhang, from R&D Team 3 yesterday. questioned him for hours. This is scary. Now I'm looking at everyone like they're a suspect. Apex Dynamics played dirty. This was a clear attempt to gut us. But where's the proof? How did the data get out? If they can't find the source of the leak, this cloud is going to hang over us forever. And with the stock in the toilet, you can kiss your year-end bonuses goodbye. I stood by the water cooler, listening silently. I was a low-level grunt, a million miles away from top-secret projects. This shouldn't have had anything to do with me. But looking at the anxious faces of my colleagues and thinking about my now-endangered bonus, I couldn't help but feel a knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. I found myself trying to think like the mole. Okay, so you have to get the data out of the building. How? A flash drive? Email it to yourself? Upload it to the cloud? The internal network security is a fortress these days. Those methods are way too risky. They'd track it in a second. Unless a scene from some spy movie I'd seen popped into my head. Unless you go low-tech, physically carry it out, print it all out? No, that's stupid, way too obvious. What if you hid the data inside something else? Something that leaves the building all the time? Like inside a printer's toner cartridge? They're black, they're sealed, no one ever looks inside them. And toner cartridges are consumables. They get replaced, sent out for service, recycled. The idea was so out there, it sounded ridiculous even to me. A toner cartridge? That's insane. Would Apex Dynamics really send someone to our office to collect our used toner cartridges? Or bribe the guy in our e-waste disposal unit? I was lost in thought, tracing circles on the condensation on the water cooler. Just then, old man Joe from IT, the guy who handles our office equipment, walked in, grumbling. Man, when it rains, it pours, he said, filling his water bottle. That guy from Apex Dynamics called again, asking about that contract for our used toner cartridges. Want to know when they can come pick up the last batch. Like we don't have bigger things to worry about right now. He didn't mean anything by it, but for me, it was like a lightning strike. My hand froze. Apex Dynamics, a used toner cartridge contract. The ridiculous idea that had just been a stray thought suddenly solidified into a terrifying possibility. My heart started to pound. Apex Dynamics. They have a recycling contract with us for our used toner cartridges? Oh my God. What if that's it? They had a microchip or a tiny memory card inside a cartridge that's scheduled for disposal. And then Apex just comes and picks it up right under everyone's noses. It's brilliant. It's hiding in plain sight. The shock of the realization washed over me. And at that exact moment, a cold voice spoke from behind me. Leo, my office. Now, I jumped, nearly dropping my mug. I spun around. Victoria Sterling was standing in the doorway of the break room. Her face was grim, her eyes sharp as knives, fixed on me. Ava stood behind her, looking equally serious. The break room fell silent. Everyone held their breath, their eyes darting between me and the CEO. They were looking at me like I was a dead man walking. My heart sank into my shoes. Oh no, was I thinking too loud again? Did I accidentally say something out loud? Did she hear me? Does she think I'm crazy? Or did security find something that connects me to this? I swear to God, I don't even know which floor Project Zenith is on. And then, under the weight of a dozen pitying, suspicious stares, I followed Victoria Sterling and her assistant out of the break room like a lamb to the slaughter. 10 days later, the roar of the celebratory banquet was still ringing in my ears. Champagne, praise, flashing cameras, and Victoria on stage, delivering a short but powerful commendation. I want to thank Leo Carter for his sharp instincts at a critical moment, which saved this corporation from catastrophic losses. I was standing in the spotlight, the focus of 100 envious and curious stares, feeling like I was floating, completely disconnected from reality. Sharp instincts? Instincts my ass. I was a blind squirrel who happened to find a nut. I was just spitballing crazy ideas. She's laying it on way too thick. My mind was in overdrive, but my face was locked in a humble, honored smile as I accepted the heavy crystal trophy for special contribution. The CFO even came over and clapped me on the shoulder, his voice dripping with insincere praise. Bright future, Leo. The CEO really has her eye on you. I just smiled weakly and nodded. Has her eye on me? More like she's using me as her personal psychic hotline. You can have this good fortune, buddy. I don't want it. Maybe it was the sudden release of tension after weeks of stress, or the Arctic blast of the ballroom's air conditioning, or the several glasses of champagne I'd downed for courage. But later that night, I collapsed. A raging fever swept through me. My bones ached, and my throat felt like I was swallowing glass. I curled up in bed under a mountain of blankets, my body shivering and sweating, my consciousness drifting in and out. Well, I'm totally toast. My head was full of cotton. The bonus, I didn't even get to spend any of it yet. This stupid body, is she going to think I'm faking sick to get out of the follow-up investigation? Oh, I'm screwed. A hero one day, a slacker the next. I'm dead. I was so weak I couldn't even reach for my phone. I vaguely remember using my last ounce of strength to send a typo-ridden message to my supervisor on the Sterling Pulse app. Fever 104, sick day. Then darkness. I don't know how much time passed before a sharp, insistent ringing at my door pierced the thick fog of my fever dream. Who is it? For God's sake. Delivery? Grubhub? I didn't order anything. I struggled to lift my head from the sweat-soaked pillow. My throat was so dry, my voice came out as a broken rasp. Who? Who is it? No answer. Just another ring, more insistent this time. I sighed, resigned, and began the arduous process of getting out of bed. Every movement sent a jolt of pain through my body. I dragged my leaden feet to the door and peered through the peephole, and my blood ran cold. Standing outside my apartment was Victoria Sterling. She wasn't in her usual power suit. She wore a simple, elegant dark gray cashmere coat. Her face, in the dim light of the hallway, looked pale. Her dark hair was pulled back loosely, a few stray strands framing her face, giving her an uncharacteristically soft, or maybe just exhausted look. She wore a medical-grade face mask, and all I could see were her eyes. They were still sharp and intense, but they seemed to hold a flicker of something I couldn't identify. Concern? My brain blue-screened. I wrenched the door open. A blast of cold air hit me, and I shivered violently. My voice was trembling. MMS. Sterling. What? What are you doing here? The words tumbled out before I could stop them. A shocked, inappropriate question. How did you know where I live? As soon as I said it, I realized how stupid it sounded, and my face, already burning with fever, flushed even hotter. Her eyes took in my pathetic state. Fever-bright eyes, tangled hair, wrinkled pajamas. She frowned slightly. She didn't answer my stupid question. She just held up a small paper bag from a pharmacy. I heard you were sick. Her voice was muffled by the mask, but it still had that cool, crisp quality. I was in the neighborhood. I brought you some medicine. In the neighborhood? You live in a gated community on the North Shore. I live in a rundown walk-up in Logan Square. That's the most roundabout neighborhood in history. The thoughts were screaming in my head, a tidal wave of confusion crashing against my fever-addled brain. How did she know I was sick? Who told her? My supervisor? Why would he bother the CEO with that? And she knows my address. And she's delivering medicine. In person. Oh my God. Am I hallucinating? I was so stunned, I just stood there, staring, forgetting to even take the bag from her. Victoria seemed accustomed to my stunned silence. She didn't say anything else. She moved to hand me the bag, or maybe to set it on the shoe rack by the door. But as she stepped closer, my fever-sensitive skin registered the chill coming off her coat, the cold of the winter night clinging to her. The cold was a stark contrast to my own burning heat. I instinctively tried to step back, but my movements were clumsy and slow. And then Victoria did something that made my soul try to leave my body. She didn't just hand me the bag. She leaned in closer. Her movement was deliberate, questioning. Her deep, dark eyes, visible over the top of her mask, were focused on my flushed face, my fever-bright eyes. Her breath, warm and soft, ghosted across my burning ear, the sensitive skin of my neck. My blood turned to ice in my veins. I was frozen, completely unable to move. She was too close. So close I could smell the faint, cool scent of her perfume, something woody and clean, mixed with the sterile scent of hand sanitizer. The smell was intoxicating, overwhelming my senses, making my head spin even more. The feeling of her breath on my ear was like a tiny electric current, sending a strange, terrifying shiver down my spine. What is she doing? My mind shrieked. Why is she so close? Is she checking to see if I'm really sick? The proximity, the intimacy of the moment was terrifying. My heart was going to beat its way out of my chest. I couldn't breathe. Just as I thought I was going to pass out from shock and lack of oxygen, Victoria finally spoke. Her voice was a low murmur, meant only for me. The way you look right now, who would ever think you were faking it? Boom. An atomic bomb just detonated in my brain. The fever, the confusion, the pain, the fear, it all vanished, vaporized by those 9 words. A single, horrifying, unbelievable possibility, a theory that suddenly connected every bizarre thing that had happened over the past few weeks, slammed into me. What if Victoria Sterling can hear my thoughts? The idea was a lightning strike, illuminating everything. Canceling the check-in policy in the elevator, reforming the cafeteria, the safety email after the bumper car incident, my commendable courage in the meeting, her sharp instincts about the toner cartridge. Every single time, my silent, internal rants were followed by her swift, unervingly accurate actions. The memories flashed through my mind. Victoria's thoughtful gazes, the tiny, almost imperceptible smiles, her impossibly well-informed decisions. A cold sweat drenched my back. A chill colder than the winter wind shot up my spine. I snapped my head up. My eyes were wide with terror and disbelief. I stared into her deep, dark eyes, and in them, I saw my own reflection, a terrified, ghost-white face, a man who had just seen the impossible truth. Time stopped. The air in my tiny entryway was thick, suffocating. The only sound were my own ragged, panicked breaths and the cool, silent intensity of her gaze. The bag of medicine was still in her hand, a silent, mocking testament to her omniscience. I opened my mouth, but my throat was raw and no sound came out. I could only stare at her, my eyes screaming the question my lips could not form. You can hear my thoughts. Victoria Sterling stood in the dim, yellow light of the hallway, the gray coat making her seem tall and untouchable. She looked at the expression of pure, world-shattering horror on my face. The eyes above her mask held no surprise, no amusement, only a calm, almost chilling acceptance. Her gaze said it all. Yes, you finally figured it out. She leaned over and placed the paper bag on the rickety, cheap shoe rack by my door. Take the medicine as directed. The mercury thermometer is at the bottom. The cooling patches are for kids, but they'll work for a physical cool down. They feel nice. She laid out the instructions with the detached precision of a manager delegating a task. Then she met my eyes again. Her gaze lingered on my terrified face for a moment. And in that gaze, I saw something complex, something that looked almost like satisfaction. Get some rest, she said. And she turned and walked away. The sound of her heels on the old concrete floor was a crisp, steady rhythm, echoing down the stairwell until she disappeared into the shadows. The sound faded, and I collapsed. My back hit the door frame, and I slid down to the floor. Cold sweat soaked through my thin pajamas, clinging to my hot skin, making me shiver. I sat there, gasping for air, staring at the empty hallway, my mind a roaring, white-hot blank. The only thing I could see was the memory of her terrifyingly calm eyes. She knew. She knew all along. I've been a clown, a jester, performing for her this whole time. What does she think I am? A talking surveillance camera? Her own private intelligence agency. The humiliation and the terror of being so completely exposed were overwhelming. The fever-induced dizziness came rushing back. The world started to go black at the edges. I don't know how long I sat there on the cold floor before I finally managed to crawl to my feet, shut the door, and lock it. I slid back down to the floor, my back against the door, and with a trembling hand, I reached for the medicine bag. I held it like it was both a lifeline and a radioactive rock. I fumbled with the pills, didn't bother to read the label, and dry swallowed 2 of them. The bitter taste filled my mouth, but it couldn't quell the storm raging in my soul. The next few days were a blur of fever and fear. I locked myself in my apartment, refusing to answer the door or my phone. I updated my sick leave status on the Sterling Pulse app. Severe flu complicated by an ear infection. Temporary hearing loss. Requires quiet rest. I couldn't think about work. I couldn't think about Victoria Sterling. I couldn't think about the look in her eyes as she left. A week later, the fever broke. I was still weak, but the psychological trauma was worse. I felt like a hunted animal. I forced myself to go back to the office. Every step felt like I was walking through a minefield. The atmosphere in the facilities department had changed. My coworkers looked at me with a mixture of awe and fear. After all, I was the guy the CEO had personally chosen to expose the corporate spy and save the company. They had no idea what had really happened. I tried to make myself invisible, hiding in my cubicle, praying that Victoria was too busy to remember I existed. But fate had other plans. On my third day back, my desk phone rang. My heart leaped into my throat. The caller ID showed the extension for the executive office. I took a deep breath, picked up the receiver, my voice tight. Facilities, Leo Carter. Leo, it was Ava, her voice all business. Ms. Sterling wants to see you in her office. Now, this is it. The end of the line. My heart sank like a stone. Was this the final confrontation? The termination? Or something worse? I walked to her office like a man walking to the gallows. I knocked on the heavy wooden door, the symbol of ultimate power at Sterling Corp. My fingertips were ice cold. Come in, her voice, cool and clear, came from inside. I pushed the door open. She wasn't at her desk. She was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, her back to me, looking out over the city, a coffee cup in her hand. She wore a perfectly tailored charcoal gray suit, her posture radiating power and control. Ms. Sterling, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I stood by the door, my eyes fixed on the floor. She turned slowly. The sunlight framed her face. Her expression was unreadable. Her eyes scanned me as if I were a piece of equipment undergoing inspection. The office was so quiet I could hear the faint hiss of the HVAC system. Are you feeling better? She asked, her tone as casual as if she were asking about the weather. Much better, yes. Thank you for your concern, Ms. Sterling. I mumbled, my head bowed even lower. She walked to her massive desk, but didn't sit. She placed the coffee cup down with a soft click. Then she looked at me, her gaze so sharp I felt like it was peeling back my skin, layer by layer, exposing the terrified soul cowering inside. The door is closed. You can drop the act. Her voice was quiet, but the words were like daggers. I know what you think. In the elevator, you call me out of touch. In the cafeteria, you compare the food to pig slop. In the bumper car, you call me a ghost who won't stop haunting you. In the meeting, you knew Mike Wallace was taking kickbacks. And the business with the toner cartridge. That came from one of your ridiculous daydreams, too. With every word she spoke, the color drained from my face. I started to tremble. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead. To hear my deepest, most secret thoughts recited back to me so calmly, so accurately. It was like being flayed alive in public. The shame and the fear were a physical weight, threatening to crush me. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms just to stay upright. Victoria watched me, her expression unreadable. She seemed to be enjoying my torment. Then her tone shifted, but none of that matters. I looked up, stunned, and met her deep, dark eyes. What matters, she said, taking a step closer, the invisible pressure in the room intensifying, is that in the elevator, while your mind was cursing me, your mouth was saying the policy is reasonable. In the cafeteria, you were praising the food while mentally accusing the admin head of fraud. In the meeting, you knew the truth about Mike and Synergy, but to protect yourself, you lied. And in the break room, the idea about the toner cartridge was absurd, but it led to the truth. With every example, my heart sank lower. I had no idea where this was going. Was she mocking my hypocrisy or revoking my hero status? Her eyes roamed my face as if making a final assessment. Finally, she lifted her chin slightly and delivered the line that vaporized my reality. Leo, let's get married. Boom. A nuclear bomb went off in my head. My mind was a wasteland of white noise. I must have misheard. The fever must have cooked my brain. My eyes were wide, my mouth hanging open. I was a fish out of water, gasping for air, unable to form a word. What? Married? To who? To her. Victoria Sterling, the CEO of Sterling Corp. To me, a glorified handyman from facilities. Has she lost her mind? Or have I? This is 1,000 times crazier than her being a mind reader. This has to be a trap, a way to legally own me, to monitor my thoughts for the rest of my life. Somebody help me. My internal monologue was a supernova of panic and disbelief. Victoria seemed to hear the psychic tsunami, but remained completely unfazed. Her expression didn't change. She might as well have been proposing a merger. The logic is simple, she said, her voice as calm as if she were reading a quarterly report. First, I require a partner who is completely secure. You can't hear my thoughts, but I can hear all of yours. That means, with me, you have no secrets. Every thought, good or bad, is laid bare. Her gaze was brutally honest. That is more reliable than any loyalty oath or prenuptial agreement. I will never have to worry about you plotting against me, because I will know your intentions before you do. I felt like I'd been stripped naked and thrown under a spotlight. Her words were a scalpel, dissecting the very nature of my subjugation. The humiliation was bone deep. I couldn't speak. Second, she continued, a strange, almost appreciative note in her voice. You are a coward, and you complain constantly, but you have a moral baseline. You avoid trouble, so you keep your mouth shut. You're self-serving, so you protect yourself. But at a critical moment, your ridiculous daydreams can see things from an angle no one else can. She was talking about the toner cartridge. The security experts and consultants this company pays millions for were all trapped by conventional thinking. But you, an outsider, a low-level employee with a wild imagination, stumbled upon the truth. That particular brand of creativity is valuable. Creativity? Valuable. So that's why I have to be sacrificed on the altar of marriage. My worldview was being systematically dismantled and ground into dust. Third, she leaned forward slightly, her eyes locking onto mine, and delivered the final, devastating blow. And most importantly, because I can hear your thoughts, I know exactly what kind of person you are. You're afraid of trouble. You hate responsibility. You're a little clever, but have no real ambition and no real malice. All you want is to get your expense reports in on time, keep your head down, not get fired, and maybe get a decent bonus. Her words were a mirror, reflecting the most pathetic, hidden parts of my soul. My face was on fire. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. A person like that, Victoria's voice was firm, absolute, is the safest, most efficient kind of person to have by my side. You don't have to pretend with me, because it's pointless, and I don't have to waste energy trying to guess your motives. I require a completely transparent, controllable partner to manage certain social and business obligations. And you, Leo, are the only person who fits that unique and demanding job description. She finished. The office was silent. The sheer volume of information and the cold, ruthless logic of her proposal had completely broken my ability to think. I stood there like an empty shell, my mind a blank slate. Safe? Efficient? Transparent? Controllable? So I'm not just a tool anymore. I'm being promoted to a lifelong appliance. The thought was a death knell tolling in the ruins of my mind. Victoria didn't press for an answer. She picked up her now cold coffee and walked back to the window, leaving me with the image of her powerful, untouchable back. The sun framed her silhouette, coating her in a golden, almost holy light. She looked down at the city teeming below, as if she were giving me time to process the arrangement that would define the rest of my life. Or perhaps she was simply waiting for the inevitable answer she already knew was coming. And I stood there, in the shadow she cast, feeling as small and insignificant as a single speck of dust. I looked at her back, a symbol of absolute control, and then I thought of my own soul, so completely and utterly transparent to her. And a feeling of despair, mixed with a horribly absurd sense of resignation, slowly, inevitably began to drown me.